Welcome back to your fourth stimulus survival check and stimulus package update. There's no time to waste, so let's jump straight into the insanity. There was an unfortunate misspeak from Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin at Tuesday's Afghanistan hearing.
We plan to execute between 70 and 80,000. We plan to evacuate between 70 and 80,000 people.
It didn't happen just once, though. Austin slipped, saying the exact same thing again on Wednesday.
We plan to evacuate between...
As we all know, today is the day of the big vote on the bipartisan infrastructure bill. We know that Senate Democrats are seeking a vote on a stopgap bill to avert a U.S. government shutdown as funding runs out tomorrow. Per White House officials, Joe Biden has become more irritable than usual over the government shutdown, even saying Democrats are, quote, all flesh and no muscle. Allegedly, Joe Biden called Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and Steny Hoyer the Curly, Moe, and Larry of Congress.
He's already going to it. Look at that.
So watch out, Mr. President, because if you look down,
it just moves a lot.
So see how this is built from the architecture, that it's completely...
All right, watch your foot.
Go back better. That's right.
Great.
Yes, sir. I think...
Many people are still scratching their heads as to why Joe Biden received his booster shot in front of a live television audience in a soundstage with a fake White House backdrop. Call it the Truman Show 2021.
And all those who gave what President Lincoln called their last full measure of devotion.
The people who died for it, who gave what Lincoln called the last full measure of devotion.
Just last year, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki tweeted, if they quote Veep instead of the West Wing, you know they have actually spent time working on the Hill in D.C. So you can connect the dots for yourself.
How confident is the White House at this point of a vote on infrastructure tomorrow, or do you think that could slip into next week? Have you gotten any assurances? Or?
This is why we all came to Washington. It's like an episode of a TV show. I'm not in a position to lick in a crystal ball here. Maybe the West Wing, if something good happens, maybe Veep if not. I'm not sure. I will assess tomorrow where we stand.
A reporter asked Jen Psaki what she means when she says the $3.5 trillion bill will cost zero, and here's what she said.
Okay, one more question on the reconciliation package. You guys have made a lot of the administration officials have made a lot about the idea that the cost of the program is zero, and by that I expect you mean net zero to the Treasury once you sort of take into account the money that's raised versus the money that's spent, correct?
Yes, it doesn't. I know none of us are mathematicians, otherwise we wouldn't be here. But yes, of the investments that were proposed, including tax cuts and the pay-fors, including making the tax system more fair.
People online are asking, if the spending bill costs zero, why do we have to raise the debt ceiling, Jen Psaki? In an exclusive interview, former President Barack Obama came out strongly in favor of his former vice president's $3.5 trillion social safety net budget plan.
They can afford it. We can afford it. I put myself in this category now. And I think anybody who pretends that it's for billionaires to pay a little bit more in taxes so that a single mom gets child care support, or so that we're doing something about climate change for the next generation, an argument that is unsustainable. And as far as Democrats are concerned, I think President Biden is handling it exactly right.
So you feel confident it's going to pass?
I believe that it will get done.
Does anyone know what Nancy Pelosi meant when she said this?
Keep government open. We have to do those imminently, more imminently even, to address the full Obama of building back better. And I love to say building back better.
Senator Cynthia Lummis certainly hit the nail on the head while speaking in front of her colleagues.
It is absolutely irresponsible that we are $28 trillion in debt and that both parties sit here and blame each other for what they both did irresponsibly. It's absolutely what we have done to the people of this country. It's both parties' faults. It's the Congress's fault. and we need to address it. But we're so busy making each other look like the rat's rear end that we won't address the real problems in this country that led us to be 28 trillion plus in debt and now asking to get further in debt. I'm horrified. My constituents are horrified. This is got to stop.
Circling back to Jen Psaki, she also had this to say about Mitch McConnell.
At what point will it become clear whether you're going to get 10 Republican votes or not?
Well, we're working on options now. You've obviously seen Leader Schumer look to move forward with Democrats. We're being blocked on that effort currently by Senator McConnell. I almost demoted him by accident. By Senator McConnell, by Senator Cruz, and others. And what's so absurd about this is that these are individuals, especially Senator McConnell, who have made very clear in the past about their concerns and the risks of the U.S. government defaulting. This is why it's never happened in the past. It would have a huge, devastating impact on our economy. He knows that. He stated that publicly. He still won't vote for it, and he still is trying to stop us from raising the debt limit. If that's not politics, I don't know what is.
Twitter user Kate tweeted, "It'd be cool if Pfizer could develop a that protects us from Mitch McConnell." Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says the GOP is playing games with the American people.
Look, we've given the Republicans just what they asked for. Just what they've asked for. And that's what we hope to get done. As I said, going through the long, convoluted, difficult reconciliation process with debt limit is very, very risky. We're not pursuing that. This is what they asked for. This is what they're giving them. You would ask them, now what do they do? The onus is on them now that we've given them what they asked for, redress. We're doing everything we can to avoid a shutdown, and we should put something on the floor. We hope our Republican friends will join with us in that. Who knows with them? They are so playing games with the American people, political, nasty, and destructive games. Yes, look, as I said, our solution is right here. We want to get this done and get it done quickly without risk. The reconciliation process with debt limit goes back and forth. It ping-pongs between the House and Senate. It's 2 or 3 times. It's not just adding on one amendment. This is the solution. We're asking Republicans to support it. Their proposal is risky. We're not doing it. Thank you, everybody.
During a private meeting with the president, Kyrsten Sinema made it clear she's still not on board with the party's $3.5 trillion social spending plan and is hesitant to engage on some specifics until the infrastructure package passes the House. The funding bill is 2,500 pages, requesting $3.5 trillion. That breaks down to $1.4 billion per page.
This is their bill, 2,500 pages. If you take a look at $3.5 trillion price tag, and you do the math, that's $1.4 billion for every page of this bill. And they want to pass it this week. How many Democrats do you think have read this? Think Nancy Pelosi's read it? Think Chuck Schumer's read it? Do you think Joe Biden, who is desperately begging Democrats to pass it, do you think he's read it? Do you think he knows what's in it?
Pramila Jayapal says the way for Congress to move forward on the infrastructure bill is for Kyrsten Sinema and Senator Joe Manchin to make their counteroffer on the Build Back Better proposal. Jayapal said they need to come up with their counteroffer and then we sit down and negotiate from there.
96% of Democrats in the House and the Senate support the president's agenda, which is the Build Back Better agenda. And what we know is that 4% of members of the House and the Senate are not supporting the president's agenda, the Democratic agenda, and want to make some changes. Well, we've been saying for some time, we've put our vision out there. It is the president's agenda. It's not some crazy, out there left-wing agenda. It is the president's agenda that we are fighting to deliver to the people. And so we still have had no interaction no negotiation with Senators Manchin and Sinema on what is it that they don't, what is it that they do like? We know what they don't like. That's been made quite clear over and over again. But what do they want to do of the Democratic agenda, the president's agenda? We're waiting for that. But until then, Lawrence, House progressives are very clear. We are not going to leave behind women. We are not going to leave behind people who need housing. We are not going to leave behind climate change, one of the most important issues that we are facing today. And the president is going to have to go to COP26 in just a little bit. And he's going to have to explain, if we leave behind climate, why the United States feels like we can make any kind of an agreement with the rest of the world or force the rest of the world to address climate change as a real issue. So we're not leaving that behind. And that's why we can't vote for the bipartisan infrastructure bill until we pass the Build Back Better Act, which is 70% or more of the president's agenda.
Pelosi was asked about the progressives' threats to sink the infrastructure bill until the larger plan moves first, and here's what she said.
I believe the progressives' threat that they're saying half the caucus will vote against this if the Build Back Better plan is not moved first. It's not going to move first before Thursday. Do you buy that threat?
But give me what I tried to describe to them in terms of time. Up until the beginning of last week, we were 3.5. I'm very proud of our members. The committees of jurisdiction, of which the 13 acted in timely fashion to reach the September 15th goal, which everybody said is impossible, but they did. And then we had on last Saturday the plan that we would give a sufficient notice so the Budget Committee would present their proposals, and that's what happened. But in the meantime, there was this, oh my God, we can't go to that number. Well, that completely sets off the timetable. So I think that if we come to a place where we have agreement in legislative language, not just principle, in legislative language, that the president supports, has to meet his standard, because that's what we are supporting, then I think we will come together. I don't speak for them, and I think they've spoken beautifully for the priorities that we have in the bill. But because we're at the mercy of the Senate and its customs and its parliamentarian and its rules, we can't bring something to the floor without the approval of the parliamentarian in order to preserve the 51 votes.
Speaker Pelosi and progressives, though, are still threatening to block this bill by the end of today. Can you still move forward with the vote tomorrow?
Well, we take it one step at a time.
The speaker snapped at a reporter asking about the debt ceiling increase.
Thank you. It looks like the debt limit extension might not advance in the Senate. Why get mad at members? Why twist the arms of moderates if this is not going to move anywhere?
What are you talking about? We have a responsibility to uphold, to lift up the full faith and credit of the United States of America. That's what we have to do. These members have all voted for this last week. So if they're concerned about how it might be in an ad, it's already in an ad. It's already in an ad. So let us give every confidence every step of the way that we will do that. We cannot predicate our actions in the House on what could happen in the Senate. We can when we're coming to agreement on a bill. But in terms of this, I have no patience for people not voting for that.
This week, Nancy also violated her own mask mandate while hugging people and shaking hands. When asked about Pelosi saying there needs to be a deal on legislative language with the White House on reconciliation to get progressives to support the infrastructure bill, here was Joe Manchin's response.
She said that they need by tomorrow legislative language agreed to. That means
that won't happen.
That won't happen? Why is that?
No, listen, we haven't been negotiating yet in good faith. No one's been negotiating along those lines with the other party to see what would be acceptable. All we need to do is pass the bipartisan infrastructure bill, sit down and start negotiating in good faith. That's it.
Do you have a top-line figure the White House is willing to
talk about figures at all? Let's talk about the need of our country.
After Manchin returned from his meeting with President Biden, he said he made no commitments to the president on the reconciliation package.
We had good, honest, they were really good, honest, straightforward negotiations.
You made
That's
any
all talks.
Have you made any commitment to the president?
No, there was no commitments made at all. No commitments from that standpoint, just good negotiations and talking about the needs of our country.
Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have now also met with Biden after White House staff met for hours with Sinema and Manchin. Joe Manchin says the spending bill deal is unlikely to be done in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Joe also said it would be a shame if the House voted down the bipartisan infrastructure deal, saying it's the best bill you got. It's the most important thing we have.
Senator, progressives feel, though, you're not dealing in good faith. They felt that there was a deal made before.
I never knew about that. Never heard of it.
So you were never part of a deal that linked the two bills together.
About two of them are going to be together?
Yeah.
Why do you think we worked so hard to separate them?
Is it possible?
And move on and negotiate in good faith. Progressives don't trust you, sir.
They don't trust you that you're going to be with them on the reconciliation bill.
I trust that they'll negotiate in good faith, so I trust them to negotiate in good faith. We're just in a different position. That's all. And you have to work through that. That's negotiation. If you don't want to sit down and negotiate, it's my way or the highway. That's up to the highway.
Robert Reich tweeted, "Who would have thought that the entire Democratic agenda, from climate change to children, would depend on just two heretofore little-known Democratic senators who are really Republicans, Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. The U.S. Treasury has defaulted 5 times in history, but that did not stop U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen from saying this.
It is imperative that Congress address the debt limit. If not, our current estimate is that Treasury will likely exhaust its extraordinary measures by October 18th. At that point, we expect Treasury would be left with very limited resources that would be depleted quickly. America would default for the first time in history. The full faith and credit of the United States would be impaired, and our country would likely face a financial crisis and economic recession as a result. We must address this issue to honor commitments made by this and prior Congresses, including those made to address the health and economic impact of the pandemic. It's necessary to avert a catastrophic event for our economy. Senators, the debt ceiling has been raised or suspended 78 times since 1960, almost always on a bipartisan basis. My hope is that we can work together to do so again and to build a stronger American economy for future generations.
Anyways, yesterday, actor Woody Harrelson joined House Speaker Nancy Pelosi in the Capitol as she headed to the chamber for a vote. Surprisingly, Woody didn't have any thoughts to share on the debt ceiling. Pelosi is facing perhaps the toughest challenge of her 3-decade legislative career, which is getting Joe Biden's agenda over the finish line with only 3 votes to spare. Progressives are in revolt over today's infrastructure vote, with Senator Bernie Sanders saying, "If there is a vote, I hope it loses."
Are you making any progress there?
Well, I'm not, the answer is that is what is very troubling to me. The answer, I think, I'm not in the middle of all those negotiations, but Senators Sinema and Manchin, as I understand it, were in the White House today. From what I can hear from the reports, is no. It goes on and on and on. We're talking, and nothing is happening. And I think that's why it's important that we defeat the infrastructure bill in the House, and that if these guys want to see the infrastructure bill passed, they're going to have to deal with us in reconciliation.
And is that part of your worry, if the talks aren't really not progressing with the infrastructure bill still in limbo, once the infrastructure bill is passed, then there'll be no motivation for them to talk?
That's about it, yes.
As I reported on my last update, when asked if Congress is considering including a 4th stimulus payment in their $3.5 trillion budget reconciliation bill, Nancy Pelosi said the child tax credits are the stimulus checks.
Madam Speaker, are you considering a 4th stimulus check, another stimulus check, to be added to reconciliation to address the pandemic?
To what? To add it to what?
Another stimulus check.
Well, we
Some
have
are
a
wondering.
stimulus check will go out on the 15th. The child tax credit will go out on the 15th of October. We just had the September check. Yeah.
Simply put, that means there will be no new stimulus checks in the bills that Congress are working to reach deals on, when I hope to see you soon. Have yourself an incredible day and take care.